Because no one in the US ever started off the American Revolution with an idea of keeping the people safe. And if you read it in the writings by Jefferson, he'll tell you in his own writings the purpose of government was to keep the people free. But how they can change it, eh? How they can change it. It's all about safety. We've got to take all your rights away for safety. My goodness. Yeah, got to know all about you, what you're thinking, what you're doing. A whole psychological examination is done on you every day, and most folk don't mind. Well, I'll tell you. And maybe there's no point really in having the farce anymore of government, because most folk really don't mind. It'd be cheaper too, not to have to go along with it and just skip elections and keep the same people in. What does it really matter? Because one group of multimillionaires is the same group as the other group of multimillionaires in the different parties. They all invest in the same companies. Back with more after this. Hi folks, we're back. This is Cutting Through the Matrix, and you know, it's interesting too, as we give all this attention to the front men that give us to throw tomatoes at or applaud, however you happen to feel at the time. We're run by private organizations that all go back to the same big foundation that started a long time ago. All these organizations, private ones, that are the new form of, they form the new form of democracy. In fact, this was spoken about over 100 years ago when democracy was discussed in Britain by some of the high chutzpahs. And they said this would inevitably happen, where those with the cash would create basically what we now call non-governmental organizations and associations, and they would represent the public, whether the public liked it or not, or if the public even knew about them or not. Most of the public have no idea of all the organizations, these private ones, that run their lives, that always lobby government. And the government's in on it too, at least all the leaders are, because they know what's supposed to get passed and what isn't. And this is the way that the Soviet system was based, because if you look at the chart of the Soviet Union, it sounded like heaven actually, and they're always giving us lots of heavens, but we kind of fall down into hell once they're in power. But anyway, getting back to the point, the Soviet system was really based on, and Soviet means basically councils, organization of order of councils. So the idea was every area of society would have its own representatives that would just arise spontaneously, the best talkers, and represent the public. And this is what non-governmental organizations are. They have to really run our lives in the future. They already are today, but through communitarianism, for example, how they run your community as a decentralized government as they do away with nationhood altogether. This is all happening today as I speak, has been for years actually. So, whereas it's a new Soviet model for the whole world, and the bankers are all behind it. In fact, they're always a way ahead, because the bankers don't wait for things to happen. These are the guys, the real experts, the guys who really pull all the cons on us and crash countries and then plunder them and end up owning them, basically. These guys have been at this for an awful long time. I'm not talking about your little corner bank there. I'm talking about the guys who lend to nations. They've been at it for thousands of years. So, intergovernmental organizations. And now the terminology, if you go into the United Nations, is like something out of 1001 Nights, or Aladdin, and you get pictures of these magic carpets flying through the air, because of all these grandiose titles at the United Nations that belong way, way back in the Middle East in the past. But here they are today using them. And here's one on, again, climate change conferences, because you see, climate change, which is just the weather changing, and always changes and always had, it's a great thing to be in on, claiming it's a brand new phenomenon, having weather. But anyway, they've managed to pull this one off, and they're training generations of children, already done it in some cases, who left school brainwashed and believing everything they're told, that somehow it's all changing for the worst, and we've got to fight it. See, we need a new enemy to unite us all. And that's what they've done. It's the weather, you see. So You read this from the next big meeting they're having to upgrade the Kyoto Protocol, where they started all this climate change stuff. After the Club of Rome, another private organization that works with the United Nations, the think tank came up with the idea to unite the world, and after looking at, as they said in their own book in the 1970s, after looking at all the things they could possibly use to unite the world under this great big con, they came up with the idea of global warming. That would fit the bill, and famine and all this kind of stuff. That would fit the bill, they said in their own words. Anyway, we're going under it. Just like politics, we sit there and pretend it's all real. Anyway, so the intergovernmental negotiation process primarily encompasses the Conference of the Parties, COP they call it, you see. You need a dictionary for these guys. The meetings of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol, the CMP, and the subsidiary bodies meeting and a series of workshops, you see. The COP, that's a Conference of the Parties, is the supreme body. It's a supreme. They're a big supreme being and everything. And now we're going to have a body, a supreme body of the convention. Then it says, the CMP is a supreme body of the Kyoto Protocol. They love these supreme words, don't they? Supreme commanders and all that kind of stuff. It says, the convention established two permanent subsidiary bodies, the subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice, which is SBSTA. They have to change that and get a better sounding name, something that grabs you, eh? And the subsidiary body for implementation, which is the SBI. In addition, this is not, you talk about bureaucraties invented by Sidney Webb at the Fabian Society and a long time ago. This is it right here, you know. Namely, the ad hoc working group on further commitments for Annex 1 parties under the Kyoto Protocol, which is called the AWG-KP. It sounds like one of these A-teams they'd have in special forces, eh? AWG-KP. And the ad hoc working group on long-term cooperation under the convention, AWG-LCA, by the CMP and the COP respectively. That's all these supreme bodies, remember. Not kidding you. You've got to understand what they're talking about. Anyway, the big ones, the big climate change conferences for October are up now. And this is the link I'll put up tonight. If you want to wade through this rubbish, you can do so as they get together and discuss the weather and how they can punish you for anthropogenic global warming, man-made global warming, and how much CO2 you're going to be allowed to emit every year. I guess joggers are going to get fined even more than anybody else, because they're always fast breathing as they run all past you there. So anyway, this is a big one, and it's going to take place in Panama, one of them, the meetings, from Saturday, it's on right now to Friday the 7th. Back with more after this break. Exciting stuff, eh? Hi folks, we're back. This is Cutting Through the Matrix. And apparently Dick Cheney was up in Vancouver recently on a book signing deal, and he got a nice welcome from those who were protesting his visit. As a war criminal, basically. I'll put the link up for that tonight. And it's in that article too about Cheney. I mean, these guys never die. They never go away, you see. It's kind of like old soldiers never die. These politicians, they just give them one heart after another, I think, forever. But anyway, Cheney, it says, Obama should correct criticism of Bush's anti-terror tactics. His former Vice President Dick Cheney praised the Obama administration Sunday. They should give him the New American Century Award since they gave the last one, and Obama's even outdone the last one. Anyway, it says, for using a drone strike to kill American-born Muslim cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, but said President Barack Obama should now reverse past criticism of former President George W. Bush's actions against suspected terrorists. Suspected. You blow them up now, you see. Al-Awlaki, an American whose fluency in English, was born in the States, and technology made him one of the top terrorist recruiters in the world, was killed Friday in Yemen, according to U.S. and Yemeni government officials. He was up he actually worked with the White House at one point, I believe, to try to stop terrorism within, give them a better understanding, of course, of the religion and so on. And he got so fed up with them going after Muslim nations, he went over to another country, and simply on the basis that he could possibly provoke them into violence, because he had good vocabulary and a good understanding of what was going on. They sent a drone over and blew him up, along with some other ones too. It says the strike also killed Samir Khan, an American of Pakistani origin, and two others who were in the same vehicle as al-Awlaki, said the U.S. official who was briefed by the CIA. Well, you can always depend on them to tell you the whole story. Khan specialized in computer programming for Al-Qaeda and authored the terror network's online magazine Inspire. So you actually terror magazines now as well. But it makes me wonder too, when you read any propaganda from government, it all depends on how you see things, isn't it? How your perspective on things, because if you're attacking countries across the world and you're giving rah-rah cheers about wonderful drones and the latest things and so on that you've got, weaponry, isn't that the same thing? Really, isn't it the same thing? Of course it's the same thing, if it's not even worse, because you're doing it under the guise of legitimacy, and of course any enemy you've got is a terrorist, obviously. It's like the founding fathers of the US were all called terrorists as well, until they won, and it's the same in Israel. They were called terrorists, the ones who came into Israel before and after World War II, and even during it. And then once they were recognized by the United Nations, then they're not terrorists anymore. So really a decision at the United Nations can make you a non-terrorist and a legitimate entity, basically. Isn't that how it really goes? In the old days, mind you, like Scotland, they used to just hang, draw and quarter you, disembowel you in front of your own eyes, just to make sure the peasants got the message if they called you a terrorist, like William Wallace and others. But these days have gone, and there's some people in Parliament rather ticked off with that at the moment. Anyway, this is the world we live in. It's all perception and how they can twist your understanding of something, and you must participate in your own deception all the time. Now, high school students shout anti-government slogans during a protest march Tuesday in Athens against economic austerity and planned education reforms. It says here, as Europe's leaders stumble towards financial disaster, terrified investors, I call them terrifying, and risking a worldwide recession, a lot of the blame can be traced to a peculiar economic notion that economists call expansionary austerity. Expansionary austerity, I think when you work through all the gobbledygook, means that as you're getting thinner and thinner, as your austere part, your belt seems to get wider and wider. So it seems to be expanding, but you're actually shrinking. So far, the evidence is strong that this idea not only doesn't work, but is severely undercutting the economic recovery in Europe, where it's been an important influence on policy, especially when it comes to heavily indebted Greece. It's amazing. This is a ship that can't sink because it's got all these dollars and euros fired by giant cannons from all the countries that borrow it from these secretive bankers. They fire all this cash at this hole to try to plug the hole in Greece to keep it afloat, apparently, but they just can't do it. And no one can account for where all the billions and billions and even trillions of money goes. This is called science, of economics. Anyway, it says the notion that you can simultaneously slash deficits and stimulate growth is a very hopeful way of looking at the world, but unfortunately it's not based on anything ever seen in economic history, says economic forecaster Peter Berezin, managing editor of the Bank Credit Analysis. It says, now Berezin suggests the fate of Europe depends largely on whether that region's leaders will let go of their stubborn infatuation with expansionary austerity or follow it right over the edge of a financial precipice. Oh my God, eh? Maybe their belt's been all white and that'll stick on a branch on the way down and they won't go down all the way, eh? Like a cartoon. Think of this idea as a kind of bizarro Keynesianism. Instead of supporting a stumbling indebted economy with enough public spending to sustain demand until the private sector heals, how's it going to heal, eh? Government slash spending, it says. The theory is that this show of fiscal discipline unleashes such confidence amongst consumers and businesses that they spend more and invest more, boosting growth. I guess that's what you can do is buy a better quality tent for your tent city. Maybe that's what they mean by it. Something a bit thicker that doesn't disintegrate in one summer under the sun. The notion that austerity can spur growth isn't crazy, and it can work well under the right circumstances, but these are not today's circumstances. I wonder where it's ever worked. There's research suggesting, for example, if a country's growth is already strong, or if there's some other support for the economy, such as plunging interest rates or soaring exports, then cuts in government spending can indeed boost confidence amongst residents of a heavily indebted country. It's all nonsense. It's all absolute rubbish. Canada's dollar went up a couple of weeks ago, and to a stronger position. It said the country's, Canada's dollar was strong. against the US dollar, which was weak, you see. It's like a sports game, isn't it?